Out of all shots in the new Tears of the Kingdom trailer, this one right here has garnered a lot of attention and excitement from fans and theorists alike. And for good reason. There are so many little secrets and details tucked away in this short little sequence, and the mystery about what this dark and eerie place could be has only increased by the minute. After about a week of analysis and scrutiny, I think it's all but confirmed that this place is located somewhere under the surface. For one, the stalactites hanging from the ceiling are a clear giveaway. And as many have pointed out, the way the sound effects reverberate through the environment, like the groans of these monsters and the sound of the stone hammer hitting the ore, suggests a large hollow space, like a cave. Of course, this on its own is not all that exciting. We've already seen a fair share of underground settings all across the board by now. I mean, the 2019 teaser takes place almost entirely inside of a giant cavern. There's a shot from the 2021 footage where Link is bringing the pain to this new worm-like creature hanging from the ceiling. And while the 2022 footage didn't show any distinct underground settings, we did at least spot a cave entrance which wasn't there in this location in Breath of the Wild. Finally, the 2023 footage has 2 additional sequences which also seem to be taking place below the surface somewhere. However, none of these locations are quite like this one. There's an alien, otherworldly vibe to it, characteristics that aren't found in the others, not even in the 2019 footage. The air looks hazy and thick, with strange ash-like particles creeping around it, the unique vegetation like giant fungi and unusual trees and plants, the ghostly flames dancing around on the right side of the frame, and the sickly-looking, malice-infested enemies which, so far, are seen in this area alone and nowhere else in the footage. All this combined has led many to speculate that this place may be more than just a weird-looking cave below ground somewhere, but something far more sinister which, if true, could have massive implications for not just the lore of the series, but also the way Tears of the Kingdom might be played. But before we get into the clues and details about this place, let's first establish why the underground and its many layers are not only significant, but how it ties into the greater conflict that has been plaguing Hyrule since time immemorial.
In the instruction manual for the original Legend of Zelda on the NES, players were informed about what it calls the Underworld. Treacherous labyrinths located beneath the earth, filled to the brim with demonic entities, monsters, and traps which aren't found on the lush, green fields of the surface above, including Ganon himself, who also made a home for himself deep below Hyrule. The English version of the manual specifically refers to these subterranean dungeons as an underworld. However, as has become common knowledge among those invested in the lore of the series, the Western localization, particularly Nintendo of America, tends to misinterpret, change, or ignore some of the nuance present in the original Japanese text, sometimes by accident, sometimes purposely. In Japanese, there is a clear separation between the underground and the underworld, the first being chika, which simply translates to underground, i.e. a space below the surface, be it natural or man-made. The second kanji is makai, or demon world, which is more so a fictional realm or netherworld, a place of death and decay, and of course, as the name suggests, where demons are said to reside. The kanji used in Zelda 1's manual is the first one, chika. In other words, the labyrinths in the game are not part of some sort of netherworld, but are simply structures located below the surface of Hyrule. The first use of Makai, the demon world, is found in Zelda 2's manual, and refers to a place from which Ganon's minions are plotting the resurrection of their demon king. Makai would be used again in Ocarina of Time to describe what the Sacred Realm had become after Ganondorf corrupted it. A once sacred land transformed into a hellish, demonic landscape. But one thing to keep in mind is that the corrupted Sacred Realm, or Dark World as it's called in A Link to the Past, is not the OG demon world where beings like Demise and his tribe of demons originally came from, but rather a location or world which has been annexed by it, drawing it into its dominion. It's one of several worlds the forces of darkness have been able to successfully conquer, albeit temporarily, the Twilight Realm being another example, which, despite its gloomy atmosphere, did not belong to the darkness until Ganondorf brought it into these lands with him when he got sealed inside of it, corrupting the realm and transforming its inhabitants, the Twilight, into demons in the process. However, Skyward Sword's prologue explains that there does in fact exist a world where evil found its roots, the original home of the demon tribe, which is implied to lie deep below the Earth's crust somewhere, and that one fateful day, evil forces found a way to break out of this netherworld, rushing forth from the fissure and into the world above. An event so legendary that we find a massive landmark named after it in Breath of the Wild, countless ages later. There's a lot of mystery surrounding the demon world, or world of darkness as it's sometimes referred to, because although we've explored various lands which have succumbed to its rule and influence, we've never set foot or even seen the actual demon homeworld described in Skyward Sword. And yet, it's an integral part of the mythology of the Zelda universe. It represents the opposing force to the heavens, the gods, and all who support their cause. You could say it's this world's equivalent of hell, with the normal world, or Earth if you will, stuck in between this endless conflict between light and dark. In fact, there's a dungeon in Skyward Sword which acts as a sort of self-contained biome that reflects the three primary layers of the Zelda universe. A middle floor, representing the Earth, a giant lotus flower at the top, visualizing the heavens and enlightenment, and a grim and eerie basement level which represents the Underworld, with malice-filled lakes, imagery of death and decay, and the remains of long-dead bokoblins, reanimated by a substance described as crystallized monster malice. The similarities between the underworld inside the ancient cistern and the otherworldly cave from the latest Tears of the Kingdom trailer are quite noticeable. A thick and hazy atmosphere, zombie-like enemies infested with malice, as well as an abundance of malice in liquid form which is pooled together to form large puddles and streams. Then, of course, we have the spirit flames, which also seem to be unique to this underground location. These type of ghost flames tend to appear in the presence of the deceased, or when those who reside in the light cross the veil of shadow and into the world of darkness. In Twilight Princess, these people were not dead, but their nature as beings of the light prevented them from maintaining a physical form, and so only their essence, their spirit, remained visible, which took on the shape of a pale blue flame. The fact that we see almost identical flames down here suggests that this may indeed be a sort of dark world, a place where those from the surface are unable to exist physically, or they might actually be dead. Who knows?
So if this is indeed the fabled Underworld or Demon World, the same place Demise may have once called home, what does it mean for the story of Tears of the Kingdom? I mean, it's not like we've never visited dark realms or dimensions before. Well, from what we've been able to see so far, it seems that we may see a repeat of the events described in the ancient backstory from Skyward Sword, possibly on an even bigger scale. Not only do we see a brief glimpse of an environment that would fit the description of a demonic netherworld, but in many shots we can see what looks like cracks or holes, which have formed in places on Hyrule's surface where previously there were none. Furthermore, in many cases, malice is seen boiling up from these crevices. And I don't just mean pools of malice like the ones we saw so many of in Breath of the Wild, which were more or less stagnant. No, the stuff we see here is much more turbulent than that, and is boiling up to the surface in the form of these tendrils. There's quite a few shots where we can spot these malice vents, for lack of a better term, and in some cases you can see that it forms a sort of ring around the edge of the hole. In fact, they look like smaller versions of what we see happening at the castle and at the summit of Death Mountain, which also feature these long strands of malice snaking upwards. With that said, could these openings act as portals or access points which lead down to locations like this? A connection between Hyrule and this potential netherworld. It would be quite fitting because it looks like the same thing is happening in the opposite direction as well. There's more and more evidence that these green spirals we see all across Hyrule are most likely a connection between places on the surface and specific islands floating in the skies above it. And if that's true, it means we have two different types of access points popping up all over Hyrule. Those that lead to the realm in the sky and those possibly possibly granting access to a world deep below it. We've been able to spot a deactivated or dormant version of one of those green spirals. It's unmistakably the same structure, however, there's no spiraling energy present at this one, suggesting that they have to be activated before they can be used. In fact, today's guest just so happens to have made a whole video about this very subject a few days ago, so give that one a watch if you're not convinced yet. That said, if the green spirals need to be activated in some way, the same may apply to some of these holes that potentially lead to the underworld, and we may have already seen signs of this. There's a strange looking boulder located on Death Mountain, and if you look closely, it seems to have a rune or scripture on it. Maybe it's plugging up one of these portals to the underworld, and has yet to be uncovered. By removing the boulder, either by force or as some sort of magic power or spell, a new area of the netherworld becomes available. Another possible connection between the underworld and the surface are these oddly shaped trees or roots, the bottom of which emits a faint yellow light. We can spot at least 2 of them in this shot, and they could just be decorative to make the cave look more interesting. But what if they serve a more significant purpose? In the shot overlooking Hateno village, you'll be able to make out 2 strange-looking shapes on the town plaza, which were definitely not there in Breath of the Wild. Some have called them glowing mushrooms, and yeah, I can see that, but it's hard to make out their true shape given the low resolution. Whatever they are, they too glow a similar yellow hue as those tree-looking things in the underground shot. It's also the only place in the entire trailer where we see these strange flashes of light flickering all over town, and just so happen to occur in close proximity to these 2 glowing whatever they are. So could they be connected to the glowing roots in the underground shot, which also happen to have these ghost flames nearby? Weird flickering lights, spirit flames. I think you can see why people are drawing connections. It's almost as if the underworld is expanding above ground, taking root and maybe even drawing people into it, harvesting souls perhaps, which I'll admit is very speculative and it could be nothing or something entirely different, but it's an interesting thought regardless. The last clue I want to touch upon, and could point to something big regarding the world below the surface, comes in the form of the Tears of the Kingdom Collector's Edition. It includes a steelbook which reveals a missing piece of the mural we were introduced to back in September, the one with the deity figure standing on a platform in the sky. I've talked in the past about how the section below the figure seems to represent the surface of Hyrule. There's 2 shapes in the bottom left and right corners, one of which looks to be a stylized depiction of Death Mountain, which would make the other one the Hebra Mountains, as it lies at the opposite side of the map at approximately the same latitude. The mural on the steelbook reveals a group of humanoids, locking hands and staring up towards the figure in the sky. If it's true that these are indeed Death Mountain and a section of Hebra, that would make this line the surface, and means that these humanoids are actually standing in a place below ground. Of course, this doesn't necessarily prove the inclusion of a netherworld, but it does at least hint to the significance of that which lies below Hyrule. In fact, the mural seems to depict the same 3 layers present at the ancient cistern, and the Zelda mythology as a whole for that matter.
That leaves us with one final question. If there is a dark netherworld located below Hyrule, one which is slowly expanding its influence on the world above, how would we go about exploring a place like this? I mean, a world like the one described in Skyward Sword would have to be immensely deep down somewhere. We've explored a plethora of locations deep below Hyrule's surface in the past, but never have we stumbled upon some kind of portal or border that crosses into a netherworld of some kind. Netherworld also implies death or the afterlife, exemplified by the ghost flames present here. Would it even be possible to traverse a place like this as a mere mortal? Well, maybe we don't, or rather not as Link anyway. I think you know where I'm going with this, but I'm going to stop you right there and instead refer you to my video, which covers Zelda's fate and her possible role in this story. There is a whole other side to this coin which might surprise you, so head on over to my channel for the second half of this collaboration.
And that concludes today's video. I hope we were able to bring some interesting stuff to the table, and as the man said, be sure to head over to Zeltik's channel for a detailed look on how this potential underworld might be explored and by who. Hint hint. A big shout out to my mods, my Discord community, and of course my Patreons and members, of which I have quite a few new faces to announce. Thank you so much to M, King Yibo, Anthony Young, Minduino, Daniel Buchholz, Sebastian Dorain, Renyard, Nats Lesso, The Art of Mean, Sir Nicholas, Blue, Feather Elfstorm, Matthew Uller, Dave S., and Macablin Blade Master. Your generosity is only rivaled by your awesomeness. Thank you all so much. And that is all for now. This is Dawn signing off, and have a good one.